Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and oh my goodness, there have been a lot of letters going back and forth, and I really want to give you this overview so that you can hear it on Tuesday and be prepared for what's going to happen on Wednesday. It's just so crazy. Anyway, this is the formal announcement of the impeachment inquiry into President Donald J. Trump, constitutional grounds for presidential impeachment. And this will be for the hearing Wednesday, December 4th at 10 o'clock a.m. And here is the page that you can go to watch it if you want to see it. And as always, I'll put all the links to all of these down below because there's no way I'm going to get through all of the different letters, but I'm going to point out some of the highlights. I do want to spend a little bit of time on Cipollone's response to Jerry Nadler. And so that's the one I really want to focus on. But let's go through some of the others. And this is the first one. This is from Jerry Nadler to Donald J. Trump, and he says, "Dear Mr. President, under House Resolution 660, the House of Representatives has approved certain privileges." Now, that's a key word, so keep your eye on that word and how many times Jerry Nadler uses it. "For you in the House Judiciary Committee while the committee considers whether to recommend articles of impeachment to the full House. For your reference, a copy of the resolution and related procedures are attached to this letter." And that's why this is like 13 pages long, but most of it is that resolution and then something else that's going on, the procedures that they're going to be using in the judiciary. "These procedures and the privileges afforded to you therein," there's the word privileges again, "are consistent with those used by the committee in the Nixon and Clinton impeachments." Okay, right. "The committee has noticed its first hearing under these procedures," and that was the page I just showed you. That is the official notice. "The hearing's scheduled for December 4th," and so forth. And then it says, "I write to ask if, pursuant to House Resolution 660 and the relating Judiciary Committee impeachment inquiry procedures, you and your counsel plan to attend the hearing or make a request to question the witness panel." The House Resolution 660, as I read it, I don't think it says anything about the president. I think it has maybe one line in it, but yeah, it gives them absolutely no rights or, as Jerry likes to say, privileges. Yeah, let's go on. "The committee intends this hearing to serve as an opportunity to discuss the historical and constitutional basis of impeachment, as well as the framers' intent and understanding of terms like high crimes and misdemeanors. We expect to discuss the constitutional framework through which the House may analyze the evidence gathered in the present inquiry. We will also discuss whether your alleged actions warrant the House's exercising its authority to adopt articles of impeachment. If you would like to participate in the hearing, please provide the committee with notice as soon as possible, but no later than by 6 p.m. on December 1st. By that time, I ask that you also indicate who will act as your counsel for these proceedings. I remain committed to ensuring a fair and informative process." I'm sorry I can't read that with a straight face. Really, Jerry, this is not. "To that end, I remind you," here's the kicker, folks, "that participation by the president or his counsel has been described by the committee in past inquiries as, quote, not a right but a privilege or a courtesy which is being extended to the president's counsel." Yeah, due process, confronting your accusers, that evidently is a privilege and not a right anymore, according to Jerry Nadler. Oh. "I am hopeful that you and your counsel will opt to participate in the committee's hearing consistent with the rules of decorum and with the solemn nature of the work before us." Oh, my. "And so the committee looks forward to your participation in the impeachment inquiry as the committee fulfills its constitutional duties. Oh, while we invite you to this hearing, we remind you that if you continue to refuse to make witnesses and documents available to the committees of jurisdiction," I can just see Jerry Nadler's veins in his neck bulging about now, and his voice is getting higher as he gets more frustrated. "Under House Resolution 660, the chair shall have the discretion to impose appropriate remedies." Dum, dum, dum. Yep. So that's what Jerry has to say. I don't know. Jerry's signature there looks a little shaky to me. And so he sent that, copies to Doug Collins. Boy, Doug's got his work cut out for him this next week. pray for that man. And then Pat Cipollone, who's the counsel, which it's kind of silly. Tell us who's going to represent you. It's like, well, wouldn't that be like the White House counsel to the president? I mean, that just seems to make sense to me. Anyway, so, of course, then Jerry Nadler, they had this that notifies President Trump and Ranking Member Collins of privileges provided during impeachment inquiry. Privileges. Oh, by the way, back on this one, I did want to show you page 11. This is where they lay out some impeachment inquiry procedures for the Committee on the Judiciary. And essentially, it's not a whole lot different from the other one. It's trying to make it sound like it's very fair. It's going to be fair, right? Yeah, right. Well, they're still waiting for a report. See, there's this report they're supposed to have coming from Adam Schiff's committee, and they still haven't gotten that. So, the committee may receive from committee counsel for the majority and minority at a hearing a presentation consisting of a written statement detailing in paragraph form information believed by the counsel to be pertinent to the inquiry, a general description of the scope and manner of the presentation of evidence, and or a detailed presentation of the evidentiary material other than the testimony of the witnesses. And so, the President's counsel shall be furnished a copy of the report, the records, or other materials referenced in section 2, 5, and 6, and any material furnished to the committee pursuant to this section. The President and his counsel shall be invited to attend and observe the initial presentations, and the President's counsel may ask questions, subject to instructions from the chair or presiding member respecting the time, scope, and duration of the examination. Okay, now when it says presiding member here, that does not mean ranking member. Okay, that's not Doug Collins. What that's talking about is if Jerry Nadler can't physically be there and he appoints someone else to preside, it will be a Democrat. Okay, and so it's still going to be in the hands of the Democrats, whoever it may be. And here's the situation. Look at this. Because it says, oh yeah, you can ask questions, but hey, if we don't like the questions you're asking, or we want to limit you to okay, you get 1 minute to ask questions, that they can do that. I mean, this is what that statement right there says, that pretty much you can only ask questions if we so determine that you should be able to ask that question. And we determine how long it's going to be that you can ask questions. That's outrageous. In my opinion, that is totally outrageous. Subject to instructions from the chair or presiding member. Oh. Anyway, then it goes on. It's just the same thing. Well, you'll be invited to respond orally or in writing, as shall be determined by the chair. Again, shall be determined by the chair, but at least this time in consultation with the ranking minority member. What's he supposed to say? He's going to go, no, that's not right. And Nadler's going to go, I don't care, and going to go on and do it himself. Anyway, it's not going to make any difference. Do you see how the deck is so stacked? I mean, it clearly is here. Should the President's counsel wish the committee to receive additional testimony or other evidence, he or she shall be invited to submit written requests and precise summaries of what he or she would propose to show, and in the case of a witness, precisely and in detail what is expected the testimony of the witness would be if called. Really? Oh my goodness. On the basis of such requests and summaries and of the record then before it, the committee shall determine whether the suggested evidence is necessary or desirable to a full and fair record in the inquiry, and if so, whether the summaries shall be accepted as part of the record or additional testimony or evidence in some other form shall be received, subject to instructions from the chair or presiding member respecting the time, scope, and duration of any examination or presentation. Okay, same thing here. In other words, the Democrats get to decide that anything that the President's counsel wants to include in the record, if it should be included in the record. And if they don't like it, if it's not something they want included in the record, they won't let it in. This is so not fair. I mean, I don't understand how anybody can see this as fair proceedings. Oh, and then when it comes to the witnesses, okay, here's the deal with the witnesses. First of all, the president and his counsel really can't call witnesses. Well, it says they can, but it's under the same rules as it was for the Intel Committee. Basically, you can ask for them, but we've got to approve them. And if we don't like them, we're not going to let them in. Because if you remember, I did a video on Devin Nunes, and he had all the witnesses that he wanted to come in, and he told why. He had a paragraph there telling why he wanted each one. And Schiff said, nope, 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 nope. Not a one of them was allowed in. Not one. Well, that's the same thing. And in case of a tie vote, the ruling of the chair shall prevail. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And this is basically the same rules that was set up with Schiff. The chair will be able to ask questions for as long as he wants, as long as the total time does not exceed 90 minutes. And then the ranking member gets equal time. But Jerry Nadler can recognize somebody else to ask questions during his time. But evidently, Doug Collins won't be able to. So, again, this is just so absolutely unfair. And the president's counsel may question any witness called before the committee, subject to instructions from the chair. I mean, it's like at the discretion of the chair in consultation with the ranking minority member. Well, isn't that nice of him? Because he's going to do whatever he wants anyway, but at least he'll say, hey, what do you think, Doug? And Doug will say, no, no. And he'll say, I don't care. And just do it anyway. That's how it's being set up. Should the president unlawfully refuse to make witnesses available for testimony to, or to produce documents requested by the investigative committees listed in the first section of this Resolution 660 in furtherance of the investigations described in the first section of Resolution 660, the chair shall have the discretion to impose appropriate remedies. Now, I don't know what that means, but well, who knows? They'll come up with something, including by denying specific requests by the president or his counsel under these procedures to call or question witnesses. So, you don't do what we want you to, and we will not let you call witnesses. Ha ha ha. Yep, that's pretty much how it's going to go. And I want to remind you of the video I did on AG Barr and the unitary executive, because what is playing out here, folks, is a struggle between two branches of our government. Actually, it's between all three, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, that's how our framers set it up, because the struggle between those three branches is what keeps them all three honest, or at least mostly honest, supposed to. But lately, the judiciary and the legislative have been kind of ganging up on the executive. And so a lot of the things that they're asking here, these documents and these witnesses that they're calling on, are protected by the executive privilege. And so they should not be allowed in. So it's not that President Trump doesn't want these people to talk. That's not the issue. The issue is this is a definite separation of powers that has to take place, this struggle. And I just saw today that President Trump had a tweet, and he said maybe we'll have to get the Supreme Court involved in this, because that's where this is ultimately going to have to go, to the Supreme Court, because this is a battle between the executive branch and the legislative branch. And with the unitary executive, which means the president is the sole person that is vested with the power in the executive branch, and then he delegates it out. And there's a lot going on there, folks. You really need to watch that other video, because I think that will explain it better, what this whole unitary executive thing is about. And that really is the question going on. The legislative branch, as I've been saying since I started putting videos up on this channel, this is a struggle between them, and the legislative branch is trying to usurp the power of the executive branch. They want to be in control. And, you know, that's what the struggle is. So I do think the Supreme Court's going to have to get involved. I really do. But there's so much more that's going to be going on there, too. So I wanted to point that out to you. Then, like I said, this is where he sends off a letter to Trump and to Doug Collins as well. And they're fairly short. This was on the 29th. And it just says, earlier this week, Chairman Schiff announced that the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence is preparing a report summarizing the evidence we have found this far. Well, that shouldn't take long. There's nothing there, which will be transmitted to the Judiciary Committee soon after Congress returns from the Thanksgiving recess. As of now, I don't think they have it. As far as I've been able to see, I haven't seen anybody on Twitter say that they got it yet, but it could be. I just haven't seen it. That report will describe, among other things, a months-long effort in which President Trump again sought foreign interference in our elections for his personal and political benefit at the expense of our national interests, and an unprecedented campaign of obstruction in an effort to prevent the committees from obtaining documentary evidence and testimony. Once again, that report has not been given to the committee members yet. As you are also aware, the Judiciary Committee has been engaged in an investigation concerning allegations that you may have engaged in acts of obstruction of justice, as detailed in Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report. They're still beating that dead horse. So they're trying their best. They have nothing, and so they're going to try anything they can. For a detailed discussion of the scope of the impeachment inquiry, I refer you to the report accompanying House Resolution 660, which was that thing back here I showed you that was attached to that initial letter that they sent. In anticipation of our consideration of these matters, I am writing to determine if your counsel will seek to exercise the specific privileges set forth in the Judiciary Committee's impeachment procedures adopted pursuant to House Resolution 660 and participate in the upcoming impeachment proceedings. In particular, please provide the committee with notice of whether your counsel intends to participate, specifying which of the privileges your counsel seeks to exercise no later than 5 p.m. on December 6, 2019. I look forward to your prompt response. Okay, so the request was for December 6th. All right. Now, when he first told him this letter right here, he was asking for December 1st. The date on this that he wanted to have, by 6 p.m. on December 1st. So the letter I'm going to read you that's from Cipollone is in response to that original one. And then he said there's going to be another letter coming out before December 6th. So, yeah, letters are flying here. Well, this is what Nadler sent to Doug Collins, and this part is exactly the same. And then, in anticipation of our consideration of these matters, I'm writing with respect to the operation of Section 4C of the House Resolution 660, pursuant to which the ranking minority member of the Committee of the Judiciary is authorized, with the concurrence of the chair of the Committee of the Judiciary, to require issuance of subpoenas or interrogatories as deemed necessary to the investigation. If you would like to seek my concurrence to issue any subpoena or interrogatory under this rule, I ask that you do so no later than 5 p.m. on December 6th. Okay, now keep in mind, folks, that Doug Collins has no idea who the Democrats are going to be calling. I honestly don't think they know past this first hearing. I don't think they even know who they're going to be calling. And so Doug Collins doesn't know. How is he supposed to make up a list? He has no idea which direction they're going. He doesn't know, but he's supposed to have them all listed before December 6th. And this is what they did to Devin Nunes, too, that they had them all listed at the very beginning before anything started. And so how are you supposed to fight like that? I mean, they keep changing the goalposts. They move them. And so, this is what it's all about. I look forward to working together as we prepare for these important proceedings. I could not do that job. I couldn't work with the man. I really couldn't. Okay, well, this is from Doug Collins to Jerry Nadler as of November 30th. And he says, Dear Chairman Nadler, on Wednesday, December 4th, 2019, the House Judiciary Committee, the committee, is scheduled to hear testimony on the constitutional grounds for presidential impeachment from 4 scholars. To ensure fairness and restore integrity to the ongoing impeachment process, I request an expanded panel and a balanced composition of academic witnesses to opine on the subject matter at issue during the hearing. Historically, the committee has called upon a robust slate of academics representing a spectrum of scholastic and political viewpoints to expound upon the somber subject of removing a duly elected president. For example, during the impeachment inquiry of President William J. Clinton. And keep in mind, Jerry Nadler was part of that, so he knows what went on then. The committee assembled 2 panels of 10 and 9 academics. Now, compare that to 4, okay, folks? They had 2 different ones. They had a total of 19, and now they're going with 4? Yeah, totally different. Respectively, to help the committee grapple with impeachment. On December 4th, the committee will hear from only 4 academic witnesses during its consideration of the question of impeachment. This is less than a quarter of those called to testify during the Clinton impeachment. In light of this, I request that you expand the number of witnesses called upon to testify on December 4th to give the American people a wider array of perspectives regarding impeachment. I further request that you equally allot those witnesses to the majority and minority's choosing. Because right now it's 3 and 1, okay? They get 3 and the minority gets 1. The committee must ensure it maintains its credibility and its historically preeminent role in the impeachment of presidents by not rushing to articles of impeachment or hearing only from scholars with demonstrated animosity towards the president. Throughout this hurried and partisan impeachment process, I have consistently requested mere fairness from members of the majority. An equal distribution of experts for the December 4th hearing would be a small concession to demonstrate to the American people this impeachment inquiry is not merely political theater. Okay, so that's what he had to say on the 30th. All right, well, on the 1st, we get this letter, and this is from Cipollone, who is President Trump's counsel, the president's counsel. And he says this, and this is in response to the November 29th or November 26th letter, which wanted the response by December 1st. Okay. I write in response to your letter of November 26, 2019 to President Trump regarding the purported, quote, impeachment inquiry, because they always do that. The Republicans are saying, quote, impeachment inquiry. So that's what they always do. Currently being conducted by Democrats in the House of Representatives, House. As you know, this baseless and highly partisan inquiry violates all past historical precedent, basic due process rights, and fundamental fairness. Your letter asks that the president notify the House Committee on the Judiciary by December 1st, 2019, whether the administration intends to participate in a hearing scheduled for December 4th. You scheduled this initial hearing, no doubt purposely, during the time that you know the president will be out of the country attending the NATO leaders meeting in London. And this is a perfect illustration of what's going on. The Democrats are chasing this witch hunt, and the president is doing his job. He just goes on. And so that's really what is happening. They're not doing anything, but he is doing the work he was put in there to do. Your letter provides little information about the upcoming hearing, and, I read it to you so you understand. It really didn't say anything except that this is a privilege you have, not a right. It vaguely indicates that you intend to hold a hearing to discuss the, quote, historical and constitutional basis of impeachment. We understand from rumors and press reports, see, this is where they're getting their information because he's not giving it to them directly. He says, though not from any notice provided in your letter or in the official notice of the hearing, which it didn't say who the people are going to be. Usually it does. When you have something like this announcement, down here it will tell you the witnesses. And they just recently added this witness list. This wasn't on there when it first came out. So there are the people. Oh, at least Jonathan Turley. He must be the minorities guy. Jonathan Turley is the one who wrote the article that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that pointed out how brilliant it was for Jeff Sessions to pair up the Inspector General Michael Horowitz with John Huber, who was a U.S. attorney, because Horowitz cannot indict anyone, but Huber could. So that was a brilliant article that was put out, and Jonathan Turley was the one that was talking about that. So just wanted to point that out to you. But anyway, yeah, this wasn't there when they first put it out, so that has been added to it. Anyway, so we're back to this one, and that the hearing will consist of academic discussion by law professors. We understand this to mean that your initial hearing will include no fact witnesses at all. You also sent another letter on November 29, 2019, setting a different deadline of December 6 for the president to provide notice as to whether the administration intends to participate in additional unspecified hearings that apparently will occur after that date, and to specify the rights the president wishes to exercise at those additional hearings. Again, your letter provided no information whatsoever as to the dates these hearings will occur, what witnesses will be called, what the schedule will be, what the procedures will be, or what rights, if any, the committee intends to afford the president, which is evidently none because they call it a privilege and not rights. In other words, you have given no information regarding your plans, set arbitrary deadlines, and then demanded a response, all to create the false appearance of providing the president some rudimentary process. In any event, this letter responds only to your letter of November 26th and fully reserves the right to respond further when and if you release more information about the December 4th hearing. We will respond separately to your letter of November 29th by your requested deadline of Friday, December 6th. So there'll be another one coming. As an initial matter, your letter of November 26 only exacerbates the complete lack of due process and fundamental fairness afforded the president throughout this purported impeachment inquiry. Although your letter attempts to invoke precedent from the Clinton impeachment inquiry, you have completely ignored not only the process followed then, but all other historical precedent. For example, when the Judiciary Committee scheduled a similar hearing during the Clinton impeachment process, it allowed those questioning the witnesses 2.5 weeks notice to prepare. And it scheduled the hearing on a date suggested by the president's attorneys. Today, by contrast, you have afforded the president no scheduling input, no meaningful information, and so little time to prepare that you have effectively denied the administration a fair opportunity to participate. Although the hearing is set to occur in just 3 days, you still have not disclosed the identities of the witnesses who will appear. And like I just showed you, it's there now, but it wasn't there when they first put it out. They just put that up. Press reports, as late as this afternoon, indicate that the identities of these witnesses, apparently all academics, have not even been provided to other Democrats on the Judiciary Committee. Now, this was dated on the 1st, and I'm recording this on Monday night, the 2nd. These reports also indicate that you currently intend to call 3 academic witnesses, but will allow Republicans to call only 1 such witness. Worse, while providing no information, you have demanded a response from the president. Your letter does not even attempt to explain the reason for this. The committee's unfair process regarding this hearing follows numerous other violations of due process by the House, both before and since the adoption of House Resolution 660, including the outright prohibition on participation by the president at any stage in the proceedings before the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. There, Chairman Schiff attempted to concoct a false narrative through selective citation of the testimony of witnesses of his choosing after vetting them during closed-door depositions hidden from both the president and the American public. The president was not allowed to present evidence, to call witnesses, to cross-examine witnesses, or even to see transcripts until weeks after testimony had been taken, and he was allowed absolutely no participation in the public hearings that followed. Further, witness requests made by Republicans were denied. In addition, certain questioning of the witnesses who did testify was censored by Democrats, and we all saw that. That was clear to everyone who was watching. Despite the fundamental unfairness of those hearings, the facts that emerged even from Chairman Schiff's carefully controlled and blatantly unfair process served only to further confirm that the president has done nothing wrong and that there is no basis for continuing your inquiry. Inviting the administration now to participate is in an after-the-fact constitutional law seminar with yet-to-be-named witnesses only demonstrates further the countless procedural deficiencies that have infected this inquiry from its inception and shows the lack of seriousness with which you are undertaking these proceedings. An academic discussion cannot retroactively fix an irretrievably broken process. Moreover, your November 26th letter threatens that, quote, while we invite you to this hearing, we remind you that if you continue to refuse to make witnesses and documents available to the committees of jurisdiction under House Resolution 660, the chair shall have the discretion to impose additional remedies. Any attempt by the Judiciary Committee to deny the president procedural rights based on the president's assertion of the longstanding constitutional rights and privileges of the executive branch is equivalent to denying the president his procedural rights altogether. Keep in mind, that is where that unitary executive comes in, and they are trying their best to make that be something it's not. It's not that he's saying that he can't be touched or anything, but there are certain rights that the executive branch has, and those should not be usurped by Congress. Your letter also wrongly claims an equivalence between the procedures applicable to past impeachment inquiries and the procedures adopted by House Resolution 660. Past inquiries, however, did not authorize one set of committees to conduct 2 rounds of hearings with witnesses, 1 round in secret and another in public, while prohibiting the president from any opportunity to participate. Nor did these past inquiries continue to deny those rights to the president, even in a 3rd round of hearings before yet another committee, the Judiciary Committee. In other impeachment proceedings, the President's counsel was not excluded from the hearings that took testimony from fact witnesses, nor was the President denied the right of cross-examination during those hearings. It is also demonstratively false for you to claim that the procedures provided in House Resolution 660 for the Judiciary Committee's hearings are consistent with those used by the committee in the Nixon and Clinton impeachments. First and foremost, nothing in the procedures for those impeachment inquiries permitted the chairman to deny the president the ability to participate or to deny any other procedural rights as a punishment for asserting executive branch constitutional privileges. Both presidents in those proceedings had asserted numerous privileges, but it never even occurred to the Judiciary Committee that offering the opportunity to present a defense and to have a fair hearing should be conditioned on forcing the president to abandon the long-standing constitutional rights and privileges of the executive branch. This would cause significant and lasting institutional harm. Second, in both of those proceedings, the minority party had co-equal subpoena authority. Here, by contrast, the ranking member of this committee cannot force a vote on subpoenas that you choose to issue, but you can enforce committee votes on the ranking member's subpoenas. All of this is an unprecedented and extremely troubling denial of basic due process that destroys the legitimacy and credibility of your inquiry. Lastly, what past impeachment proceedings make clear is that the Judiciary Committee must hear and assess evidence for itself. In 1998, now remember, Nadler was in on Clinton's impeachment. You pointed out that the committee cannot simply receive a report compiled by another entity and proceed on the basis of that report. That, you explained, quote, would be to say that the role of this committee of the House is a mere transmission belt or rubber stamp. So get him with his own words, because that's how he was back then, because it was Clinton being impeached. But now, it's Trump being impeached, and those rules don't apply anymore. This is what gets me. They are such hypocrites. Say what you mean what you say, and don't change it over time just because it doesn't suit you. At that time, President Clinton was allowed to call 14 witnesses. Here, with the hearings before the committee set to begin a mere 5 days from the date of your latest letter, it still remains unclear whether the Judiciary Committee actually intends to permit the president or your Republican colleagues to call witnesses at all. In fact, you have not even provided simple notice of the process that will be followed or the schedule for the Judiciary Committee's hearings. It is too late to cure the profound procedural deficiencies that have tainted this entire inquiry. Nevertheless, if you are serious about conducting a fair process going forward, and in order to protect the rights and privileges of the president, we may consider participating in future Judiciary Committee proceedings if you afford the administration the ability to do so meaningfully. As you have acknowledged, the House's quote, power of impeachment demands a rigorous level of due process. And in this context, quote, due process means the right to confront witnesses against you, to call your own witnesses, and to have the assistance of counsel. So far, all of these rights have been violated. Even at this late date, it is not yet clear whether you will afford the president at least these basic fundamental rights or continue to deny them. As for the hearing scheduled for December 4th, we cannot fairly be expected to participate in a hearing while the witnesses are yet to be named and while it remains unclear whether the Judiciary Committee will afford the President a fair process through additional hearings. More importantly, an invitation to an academic discussion with law professors does not begin to provide the President with any semblance of a fair process. Accordingly, under the current circumstances, we do not intend to participate in your Wednesday hearing. We will respond separately to your letter of November 29th by the deadline you indicated of Friday, December 6th. In the meantime, and in order to assess our ability to participate in future proceedings, please let us know at least the following. 1. Whether you intend to allow for fact witnesses to be called, including the witnesses requested by Intelligence Committee Ranking Member Nunes on November 9, 2019, whom Chairman Schiff, without explanation, declined to call, as well as other witnesses we may choose to call. 2. Whether you intend to allow members of the Judiciary Committee and the President's Counsel the right to cross-examine fact witnesses, including those who have already testified and any other called before the Judiciary Committee. And 3. Whether your Republican colleagues on the Judiciary Committee will be allowed to call witnesses of their choosing. Other procedural protections to which the President would be entitled will depend on the scope and nature of the proceedings that will be held in your committee. As of yet, however, you have failed to provide this basic information to us. We stand ready to meet with you to discuss a plan for those proceedings at your convenience. As you know, it is your responsibility as the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee to ensure that due process rights are protected and to conduct a fair and just process. So that's from Pat Cipollone. Boy, his name is nice and big there. Yeah, he's not letting them get away with it. So, of course, Jerry Nader had a response to that, and his response was he wasn't happy. Late last night, the President and his counsel turned down our invitation to participate in Wednesday's hearing. His response is unfortunate because allowing the President to participate has been a priority for the House from the outset. I'm sorry, couldn't do that one with a straight face. I laughed last time I read it, too. This is why the House included the opportunity to participate in House Resolution 660. Serious folks, go back to that first link that I put in, the original letter that Jerry Nadler sent. It has the House Resolution 660 in it, down there at the bottom. You just go through it and you tell me where it says in there that the President's going to have an opportunity to participate. It really is not. So it has like one line, and again, it's couched in, if we think it's okay, kind of idea, with the chairman's approval. The American people deserve transparency. If the President thinks the call was perfect and there is nothing to hide, then he would turn over the thousands of pages of documents requested by Congress, allow witnesses to testify instead of blocking testimony with baseless privilege claims, and provide any exculpatory information that refutes the overwhelming evidence of his abuse of power. So he has to prove he's innocent. Wait a minute, I thought the burden was on the people that had to prove he was guilty. You're presumed innocent until you are found guilty in a court of law. So where's the presumption of innocence? There is none. And he has to prove that he's innocent. And when it talks about exculpatory information, if you know what's been going on with General Flynn, and by the way, there was a really good thing about that Judge Sullivan has pushed it off. He has delayed the sentencing and stuff. So that's very good. I think he's going to end up throwing it out. That's just my opinion on that. But anyway, so yeah, those are the letters. And right here is another one from Doug Collins. And he basically says, on November 12th, 14th, 18th, 21, and 30th, I wrote you asking specific questions about the process the House Judiciary Committee will use to bring some legitimacy to this, quote, impeachment inquiry launched by the Democrats alone. During the markup on November 21st, I asked you to keep me apprised of the process. Every letter and nearly every question remains unanswered, with only 48 hours before our first hearing to consider the impeachment of the president. You have not provided a witness list, and again, when they wrote these letters, the witness list wasn't there. So that was added much, much later, probably sometime today. We do not have the Schiff report, which they're supposed to have that before they start. We do not have any underlying materials to the Schiff report. We do not know of any hearings other than the one of academics and possibly a presentation by Chairman Schiff's committee. For the first time in history, this committee will weigh impeachment without any evidence for us to review. Any discussion with the yet-to-be-identified witnesses will, therefore, be an abstract. Regarding the White House participation in this sham inquiry, White House counsel Pat Cipollone wrote you yesterday evening, quote, "The countless procedural deficiencies that have infected this inquiry from its inception shows the lack of seriousness with which you are undertaking these proceedings." Former Representative Jane Harman, who is a Democrat from California, said on television Sunday morning, quote, "The process is being rushed at this point. I think that the Schiff report and the names of the witnesses for December 4th should be public immediately. Even members of your own party are calling on you to conduct a fair and thorough process. This ad hoc, poorly executed, quote, impeachment inquiry will provide the Senate with ample justification for expeditiously disposing of it. Once again, I request clarity on how you intend to conduct this inquiry. As Republicans have stated before, and consistent with Chairman Schiff's repeated statements, withholding information from the minority shall constitute evidence of your denial of fundamental fairness and due process, as well as obstruction of minority rights. I stand ready to engage with you on this point and look forward to hearing from you today." Now, I haven't seen any response to that, so I doubt if he got it, but yeah, that one he sent off today. Well, at least when I'm recording this. So that's what I've got for you. I know it was kind of long, but you needed to see the whole exchange together. You really did. And see what was going on. So I don't know what's going to happen on Wednesday. It's going to be interesting. I'll be watching, I hope. So it's going to be a very interesting week. If you can, kind of clear your schedules because, boy, things are really heating up here. And I think we're going to see some major fireworks, especially December 9th when the FISA comes out. Because, yeah, they can't hide it. They cannot stop it. And don't believe the rumors you're hearing. They're trying to get ahead of the game and try to make it, it's not really as bad as what you think it's going to be. Yeah, well, it's going to be really long, and the problem with it being so long is that people tend not to read it then, and it's like the one that came out last June, a year ago, June. There were some things in it that were very seriously damaging, but people didn't read the whole thing, so they didn't know that. And, again, it all had to kind of come out in order, and this is going to be a major one. So it's about time, folks. Justice is coming. Be prepared. Yeah. So that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.